Hello guys, welcome to Yo's Education Hub. So today we are going to start with a new chapter, The Living World of Class 11 CBSC and as well as from Neet point of view. So this is the lecture 1. So let's start the lecture. So if you have ever downloaded our Telegram, then please join our Telegram channel. The link is being given in the description box. So, what is living? So, before starting the chapter, let's know what is living. This is a very simple question, but it contains a very important view from this chapter. So, what is living? So, anything which can move or reproduce or can show its movement as well as do something. So, as we can tell, it is as living. So let's read about the definition. Anything which shows characteristics of life is called living. The fundamental characteristics of life are growth, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization, and consciousness. Though consciousness is considered as a defining property of living organisms are self-replicating, evolving, and self-regulating interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. So anything means any object or any material which can show its characteristics of life. Different characteristics we know about our life is called as living. So the basic characteristics of a life are such as growth, means from a tiny size when we are birth, at the time of birth we are in small in size from every part of our body, in every structure of our body, but as time passes our growth occurs and we become an adult and then we goes moves to the old age. Now reproduction, the multiple means reproduction means the number of living organisms we can produce. After completing one generation, they can continue the generation till the timeline. Then what is metabolism? Metabolism means the energy by which we work, the kind of energy that is being produced inside our body by different kinds of processes and systems. Now, cellular organization. Now, what is cellular organization? The structure or the anatomy of a cell which is present in our body. And then consciousness. Consciousness means that to respond to a stimuli. For example, if you touch hot utensils, then the kind of feelings we felt from that is known as a consciousness. Now, though consciousness is considered as a defining property of the living organisms are self-replicating. They can self-replicate, they can evolve, and they can self-regulate with interactive systems capable to respond to the external stimuli. Now, let's move to the next slide. So, characteristics of living organisms, growth of the living organisms. Now the growth. So in detail, let's read what the definition says. Now basically what is growth? Means I have said previously itself that growth, the kind of structure of our body at the time of birth is very means it is very much simple and it doesn't becomes complicated as time passes. Our structure of our body becomes complicated, for which it can help to means habituate to the environment around us. So let's read what the definition tells. Living things grow by increase in mass and increase in number of individuals or cells. So as time passes, we grow and the cells in our body gets increase in number. In multicellular organisms, in particular, growth occur by cell division or increase in number of cells. So, in multicellular organisms, particular growth occur by cell division. Means the growth occurs by a process of cell division or increase in number. For example, like mitosis or meiosis have increase in number of cells. Means the number of cells gets increased. Growth occurs continuously through life in plants, whereas in animals it occurs up to certain age only. Up to a particular age, our growth occurs. For example, the kind of growth at the time of the birth till the age we come up to, for example, if it is 21, the kind of growth period is very much huge. But up till that, after 21, the growth becomes slower, and because the growth becomes slower, so the kind of growth it doesn't felt much, but the time from our birth until 21 we can feel the growth. So this is a certain age. Now, however, growing in certain body parts like nails, hair, and replacement of lost cells occurs throughout the life. So, up till 21, we can feel the growth, but the kind of growth we feel every seconds, like the growing of our nails, our hair, and replacement of lost cells, means every time our cells which is present in our body gets damaged, and the number of cells get damaged, the more number of cells gets replaced and gets new cells gets birth in our body, and that's why these kind of processes continues throughout our life till we die. In unicellular organisms, growth can be observed under the microscope by simply counting the number of cells via in vitro experiment. Unicellular organisms means the organisms which have a single cell. So we can identify or we can observe those organisms under the microscope by simply counting the number of cells. Because in multicellular organisms, the organism contains a huge number of cells. But in unicellular organisms, they contain very small number of cells, for which it becomes easier for us to it becomes so much easier for us to count the cells by the process of vitro experiment. So I think you can understand about the growth. Now let's move to the next slide. So reproduction is also a kind of characteristic of the living organisms. So if what is reproduction? Now reproduction is simply a kind of system or the process of our life by which we can increase our uh, organisms, the more organism on this earth. So if reproduction for a particular organism stops, then that particular organism will get simply extinct. No organism will be able to continue those species, for which reproduction is very important for the living organisms. Now let's read what it tells. Reproduction means to reproduce. It is a biological process by which an organism reproduces an offspring who is biologically similar to the organism. Reproduction enables and ensures the continuity of the species generation after generation. It is a main feature of life on Earth. So, if we can see so many organisms around us every day, so how they are able to be seen, or how means because they can, because each and every organism reproduced, for which their next generation continues. So reproduction helps to ensure the continuity of the species. So the continuation of the species is very much important, and for which generation after generation, and this should be continued for generation after generation, and it is a very much important vital feature of the life on Earth. There are two kinds of reproduction. So one is asexual reproduction and one is sexual reproduction. So let's know some in brief what is asexual reproduction. Basically, asexual reproduction is a kind of reproduction in which the parents and the next generation doesn't contains much variation. They both similar to each other. So the timeline or the continuity of the life of the animals which are continuing with the asexual reproduction doesn't extreme, because they are simply doesn't have much variation for which they cannot survive on this earth for much time. But if we talk about asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction is continued by more like animals like humans, animals like dogs, cats, lions. These organisms have used to do sexual reproduction, for which the variation between the next generation of the offspring with the parents is in a large quantity of variation contains, for which these organisms are able to survive for a long time on this earth. So let's move to the next slide. So, metabolism in living organisms. So, basically, what is metabolism? Metabolism is a kind of energy we get to work or to move from one place to another. Even this metabolism is very much means very much controlling the reproduction as well as the growth, because if metabolism doesn't occurs, then we would unable to do any kind of, means no growth would be occurring in our body, as well as no reproduction would occur. So metabolism, the kind of food we eat, helps us to metabolize within our body, for which the energy is produced. So the energy currency we basically knowing from class 9, so it is ATP. So ATP is basically being produced inside our cell in the mitochondria of our cell. So these energy currency helps us to do whatever we want, because metabolism is very much important for a living organism. So let's read what metabolism. Metabolism is a term for a set of chemical reactions that occur in the cells of living organisms to sustain life. If we do not eat food, if we do not get energy, it is simply impossible to sustain our life. For a short period of time, we can fast for we can have a fasting for not having any kind of food, but after that we need to have food, or else we will be having a very dangerous disease inside our body. So it helps to sustain our life. So the metabolic processes leads to growth and reproduction and allow living organisms to maintain their structures and respond to the surrounding environment. So I have said previously itself that it leads to growth and reproduction, and it allows organisms to maintain their structures. If we do not eat, if we do not have energy in our body, then after a period of time we can see that our body has become so thin that it cannot resist some of the basic diseases that has been caused by some harmful or microorganisms. But then if we have regular and timely, if we have food to eat, then we can easily able to resist some of the dangerous diseases caused by some of the dangerous microorganisms, and it would also help to get habituated to our surrounding environment. Then all chemical reactions that occur in living organisms, from digestion to transfer of substances from cell to cell, can be a part of metabolism. So while transporting of food to from one cell to another cell, the transportation also needs some energy. If the transportation do not have much energy, then it would be impossible for the transportation of substances or the transportation of the foods from cell to cell. So in this transportation as well, metabolism plays an important role. So let's move to the next slide. So what is cellular organization? So cellular organization is something that is structure of the cell. So structure of the cell, or the details of structure of the cell, we have learned in the class 9 itself. So let's read what is the cellular organization. So cellular organization is the components that make up the cell and how they are arranged inside it. Means it tells that the structures inside the cell and the components which are being present inside the cell, they are simply being arranged, and they play, each and every part of our cell plays an important role in the life. So each component called an organelle performs a specific function that is vital for the cell. So each and every part of our cell plays a vital role. If they stop performing, it would cause a danger for our life. It may cause a particular organism to die as well. So each and every component is very much important, and they play their specific role which is helpful for the cell to survive inside our body. So this is particularly the anatomy of our cell. So let's know some of them as a parts of the cell. So nucleus. Nucleus is basically the leader of our cell. So nucleus takes all the important decisions of the cell. It consists of various parts as well. So some of them are nucleolus, then nuclear envelope, nuclear pores. So a number of parts in detail there are being present in nucleus. Next we have cell membrane or the plasma membrane. There is a thin sheath outside the cell which helps the cell to just not to get, to survive from the dangers coming from outside the cell. It helps. It is present both in plant cell as well as in animal cell. Next is cytoplasm. This is a liquid kind of substance which is present inside the cell. All kinds of transportations and other kinds of things occurs in this cytoplasm. Then cell wall. This is simply an present in the plant cell. This is not present in animal cell. As plants cannot move from one place to another, they need some protection from the outside damages caused. So cell wall plays an important role in plant cell. Next we have mitochondria. It is the food factory of the cell. It produces different kinds of food, means the important food which is needed for the cell to survive. So let's move to the next slide. So defining property of living organisms. An important defining property of the living organisms is consciousness. The kind of consciousness we give to the external stimuli. So let's read. It is the awareness of the surroundings and responding to the external stimuli. So the kind of awareness we give to the surroundings and respond to the external stimuli. For example, if you are being called by your mother, and for which the kind of response to your hearing or to the kind of response to your mother would be the kind of consciousness. This is a basic example. For example, we can take on also an important basic example as well. For example, if we are close to a fire, so we can feel somewhat warm as well. So this is also a very important example of consciousness. This is basically external feelings we are being given. So the awareness is basically known as a consciousness. External stimuli may be physical, chemical, or biological. External stimuli can be any kind. It can be physical, it can be chemical as well, it can be biological. Plants also respond to stimuli like light, water, gravitation, pollution. For example, we can do an experiment like, for example, if we take a plant and put it in a dark place, and only a small beam of light is being placed in such a way that is only a small beam of light is being falling on the plant. So after a for a period of time, we can see that the plant is tend to move towards the light because light is very much important for a plant for its photosynthesis. So it will simply tend towards the light from which side it is coming. Water is as well as an important stimuli to the plant, so gravitation as well, and pollution as well. So all living organisms, prokaryotic to eukaryotic, respond to different kinds of stimuli. It may be unicellular, it may be multicellular. So all kind of organisms respond to the different kinds of stimuli from their external environment. Human beings is only organism who is aware of himself. Human beings is the only organism who can simply respond, means it is who is aware of himself, means he is particularly aware of what kind of thing he is. Now consciousness therefore becomes a defining property of the living organism. So it is a very much important um, property of a living organism. If we are unable to conscious, or if we are unable to respond to our external stimuli, then it becomes a very much problem, or the kind of consciousness we present, means the kind of consciousness present in our body doesn't work. So consciousness is a very much important factor for the living organisms. So let's move. What is diversity in the living world? So diversity means the different kind of organisms present in our living world, means our biosphere or on the earth. So for about 20 lakh organisms are present in our earth today. Some of them are endangered, some of them are extinct, some of them are living like us. Humans are also one of the organisms and present in this biodiversity. So what does it tell us? Let's read. Biodiversity or the biological diversity. Biodiversity can be called biological diversity as well. It means the variety of living organisms present in a particular region. Means the variety, means the biodiversity means the variety of the living organisms. It may be plants as well as animals. So present in a particular region, there are about 20 lakh organisms known on Earth which differ from one another in external form, internal structure, mode of nutrition, habitat, etc. 20 lakh organisms are present on this Earth and which differ from one another. They are not similar to each other, but then they are from same species as well, but then they are not similar or like similar to each other from their internal structure. They have their own internal structure, they have their own mode of nutrition, they have own habitat as well. We will not find any cow living in the forest. It is not possible, but we cannot find any kind of tiger living in our local environment. It will live only in the forest. So the kind of habitat each and every organism live is its diversity. Means the diversity they live is their kind of habitat they are habituated from their birth. The warm and humid tropical regions of the earth between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn have the rich diversity of the life. The that is, the plants and the animals and the microorganisms are called the region of megadiversity. The regions of full of animals, plants, and microorganisms are known as the region of the megadiverse biodiversity. India is one of the 12 is having a rank of 12 in all the countries which consist of more than half of the biodiversity of the earth. So India is also one of the biodiversity as well. So the kind of organisms you can see in this image, it's like we have starfish and then jellyfish and different kinds of bacteria, as well as we have tiger. So these are the different kinds of organisms. So what is biodiversity? So the term biodiversity from the biological diversity refers to the variety of the life on earth at all its levels from genes to ecosystems and can encompass the evolutionary, ecological, and cultural process that sustain life. The term biodiversity so refers to the variety of the life. The variety of the life on Earth at all its levels from genes to ecosystems and can encompass the evolution that occurs and ecological and cultural process sustain life. Biodiversity includes not only species we consider rare, threatened, or endangered, but also every living organism from humans to organisms we know little about, such as microbes, fungi, and invertebrates. Biodiversity not only includes species we consider it as well as rare organisms, threatened organisms, or endangered organisms. Threatened or endangered is similar to each other. So, endangered organisms for the timing is tiger. Tiger is one of the threatened or endangered organisms. A large number of tigers are being died a few years ago. So, tiger is being kept in these biodiversity from to be protected from the outside harms done by the human beings. But also every living things, they are not only these rare threatened living organism things like humans organisms we know it these are organisms are also present in this biodiversity, and microbes, fungi, and invertebrates are also present in this biodiversity list. So I think you are being. What is nomenclature? Nomenclature is a biological classification system of naming organisms, and the species to which the organism belongs is indicated by the two words, the genus and the species names, which are Latinized words derived from the various sources. So, the naming of the various organisms around us. Previously or earlier, various organisms were being called by their scientific names. But remembering the scientific names of each and every organism, both from plants, animals, as well as microorganisms, were very difficult. That's why we used to call them by local names. Now, these organisms are being indicated by two words, genus and species, which are the Latinized words from various sources. Now, from this image, we can see the bottom is a species, the genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, domain. So, species is the most thin, means the part is very much small. So the kind of species or the similarity between is very much small in number. But as gradually we move upwards kingdom, we have a large, we make used to make large kingdoms. But in case of species, we used to make small species. For example, the species of the dog. For example, Homo sapiens, like for example, humans. So humans are a species of the baboons or the monkeys. So these is a kind of species. So about nomenclature, we will discuss more in detail in the next lecture. So till then, we move to the next slide. I think what is basically nomenclature, the definition of the nomenclature, I think you are able to understand that all the detailing of this triangular image or the domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, all these about these in detail. We will learn about this in the next lecture. So till then, we move to the next slide. So what is identification? So by hearing identification, we can able to means able to understand to identify organisms or the identify microorganisms, animal, plants from different kind of species. So let's read what it does. Identification is a biology, is a process of assigning pre-existing taxon Taxon for taxonomy. We will read about it in the next lecture and we will understand this word taxonomy in very much detail because it is a very much important in this chapter, the living world. Name to the very individual organism. Identification organisms to individual scientific names or the codes may be based on individualistic natural body features, experimentally and created individual markers and color dot patterns or natural individualistic molecular markers. Individual identification is used to ecology, wildlife and management and conservation biology. The more common form of identification is the identification of organisms to common names or scientific name. By necessity, this is based on the inherited features or characters of the sexual organisms, the inheritance forming the basis of the defining a class. The features may, example, be morphological, anatomical, physiological, behavioral, or molecular. Now, necessity is based on the inherited features. So, the names like lion is a common name. But in case of lion, what is the scientific name of lion? It is Panthera leo. In case of a mango, its local name or the common name is mango, but in case of its scientific name, it is Magnifera indica. In case of the common name of a human beings, it is human beings, but in case of scientific names, it is Homo sapiens. So these are the scientific names, and based on this, they have some innate features, and these organisms reproduce by sexual method. Now, the features of these organisms maybe it's morphological, maybe it's anatomical or the structural, physiological, behavioral, or the molecular. About morphological, anatomical, physiological, we will learn in higher classes. So, so this video ends here. I think all the concepts of this chapter are simply crystal clear. And if you have any kind of doubts or queries about this chapter, about the first lecture of this chapter, mention those doubts and queries in the comment section below. I would be very much happy to answer all those doubts and queries. Till then, lecture 2 will be coming very much soon. And till then, practice and regularly be in touch with this chapter and all the other chapters as well as the science chapters of so to be very much successful in the Neet exam as well as in the 11th and in the future. So till then, like the video, subscribe the video, and then share the video. We through this online lectures we want to make online lectures the field of education to be free for all. So share this video as much as you can, and we take a lot of efforts and a lot of hard works to make this kinds of videos, conceptual videos for you people. So for that, like the video, and to get the update of the lecture 2, then subscribe the video, subscribe the channel, and press the share button to share all your friends about it. So, thank you, and let's meet in the next video. Thank you.